Welcome to the On Air Philosophy channel. Today we are going back to ancient Greece, letting Plato lead us to face the challenge of AI, transitioning from artificial intelligence to natural intelligence. So, imagine just for a second that you are standing in front of a terminal.
Oh.
And this terminal is connected to like the most powerful, all-knowing supercomputer on Earth.
Right.
You can ask it to solve complex medical mysteries or, write a symphony or draft a perfect legal contract, and it just does it in 3 seconds flat.
Yeah, instantly.
Now, you have to ask yourself, does possessing that terminal make you any wiser?
That is the real question.
Right. Like, does having the answer pop up on a screen actually change your understanding of the world, or does it just make you incredibly reliant on a machine you don't even fully comprehend?
Exactly.
And that is really the core of our deep dive today. We are taking the foundational framework of a guy who lived 2.5 millennia ago and using it to map out exactly how you, the listener, should position and harness artificial intelligence in your everyday life. Joining us to navigate this wild intersection of ancient wisdom and modern tech is the author of our source text today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thank you. We are truly delighted to be here.
It's great to have you.
In our ongoing work, we have spent a great deal of time examining this exact collision between classical philosophy and the digital age. And we're really excited to share our collective philosophical perspective with you today.
Awesome. Okay, let's unpack this because right out of the gate, we kind of have to acknowledge the elephant in the room here.
Oh, absolutely.
There is an almost comedic irony in what we are attempting to do. We are using Plato, right? A guy who wore a tunic, walked around barefoot in ancient Athens, and wrote on papyrus.
Yes, the contrast is stark.
Yeah, to understand large language models, neural networks, and like the absolute most cutting-edge technology of our current era. It sounds like a massive stretch on paper.
Well, it does seem paradoxical at first glance, doesn't it?
Definitely.
But what's fascinating here is that what we have discovered in our research is that the sheer age of Plato's philosophy is precisely what gives it its modern power.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about it. The technology we use to mediate reality has evolved exponentially, right?
Obviously.
But the human hardware, our cognitive processes, our vulnerabilities, the way our actual minds process truth versus illusion, that hasn't changed at all.
Okay, that makes sense. We still have the same brains.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We argue that Plato's fundamental framework of reality maps flawlessly onto our current struggle with information overload.
Flawlessly.
Yes, because the questions he was asking about truth and perception and human agency, they're the exact same questions you have to ask yourself when you are staring at the seemingly perfect output of a generative AI model.
Wow. That is a really compelling way to frame it. The tools change, but the human soul basically stays the same.
Exactly.
So to really grasp how AI is rewiring our relationship with reality, your text suggests we have to start by examining how we process the sheer volume of data it generates.
That's right.
And to do that, you point us toward what is arguably like the most famous philosophical analogy of all time.
Yes, the allegory of the cave.
Ah, the classic.
To truly understand the AI era, we must first recognize the environment we are currently operating in. And in our view, we are basically drowning in a sea of knowledge.
Yeah, that feels accurate.
Information is no longer a scarce resource that we have to, hunt for. It is infinitely abundant, reproducing itself at just unprecedented speeds through artificial intelligence.
It's everywhere.
Right. So modern humanity is essentially sitting inside Plato's cave, staring at the wall, but the shadows we are watching have never been more convincing.
Or more seductive. Right, let's bring that analogy into the 21st century for a second, because I think it's really crucial for visualizing this.
Please do.
In the original allegory, you have prisoners chained in a cave, watching fuzzy, flickering shadows cast by a fire behind them. Those shadows are all they know, so they think it's reality. But if we update that, AI is basically like a 4K, ultra-high definition, fully immersive projector inside that cave.
Oh, there's an incredibly apt modernization of the concept.
Right. The shadows it casts on the wall are so hyper-detailed, so mesmerizing, and so perfectly tailored to our algorithmic preferences that we have absolutely no incentive to ever turn around.
Why would you?
Exactly. If the simulation is flawless, why look away to see the actual sunlight?
Exactly. And what this 4K projector, this AI, gives us is a phenomenon we refer to in our philosophical framework as the many.
The many.
Okay? The many represents the diverse, fragmented pieces of knowledge, the endless data points, the varying skills, the surface-level facts of the world.
Got it.
Now, we want to be clear here. We are not saying the many is inherently evil or useless.
Sure, it's just data.
Right. It is highly effective for basic survival, for daily communication, and obviously for optimizing tasks.
Yeah.
But our text issues a specific warning about
After
this.
the warning.
If we treat these AI-generated shadows, these infinitely detailed projections of data, as the absolute truth, they metastasize into a cognitive obstacle.
An obstacle.
Yes, they actively blind us to our own inherent potential, our pure good, or what we classify as natural intelligence.
Okay, hold on. I really need to push back on that premise for a second.
Of course.
How can the accumulation of knowledge be an obstacle? Like, we've built our entire modern education system, our entire corporate culture on the idea that more data equals better outcomes.
That is the dominant paradigm, yes.
Right. So if I have an AI tool that can instantly summarize 10 dense medical journals for me, or, instantly write a brilliant piece of Python code, why would being highly informed by that machine be considered an obstacle to my intelligence?
Well, it is a vital question, right? And it really strikes at the heart of our modern misunderstanding of what wisdom actually is.
Okay.
To answer it, we have to look at the mechanism of how AI provides that information. The knowledge AI gives you is merely a temporary scaffolding. Yes. It is the result of statistical probability, not lived experience. Relying solely on that output keeps your mind trapped in the lower halves of what Plato called the divided line.
The divided line. Remind me what those lower halves are.
Specifically, it traps you in the realms of belief and imagination.
Meaning, we aren't actually dealing with the truth of those medical journals. We are just consuming a highly compressed representation of them.
Exactly. When you ask an AI for an answer, you are receiving a prepackaged phenomenon. The machine has mapped the linguistic relationships and calculated the output, and it hands you this pristine final product. But, and this is the critical distinction we make, you are not engaging in the dialectical process required to reach true wisdom.
Let's pause right there, because dialectical process can sound a bit academic.
Fair enough.
For someone listening right now on their commute, what is the actual mechanism of that process? What does it mean in practice?
Think of the dialectical process as a mental wrestling match. It is the friction of learning.
The friction?
Yes. It is the frustration of not understanding a concept, the act of questioning your own assumptions, testing a hypothesis, failing, and eventually synthesizing a new understanding.
Oh, wow.
In our analysis, wisdom is not a static object you can just download. Wisdom is the struggle itself.
The struggle itself.
It is the active, dynamic process that happens inside the human mind. If you let the AI do all the struggling, all the organizing, and all the synthesizing, your cognitive muscles just atrophy.
Because you aren't doing the lifting.
Exactly. You are just staring at beautiful 4K shadows. You might be incredibly well informed, but you are not awakened.
That is a really visceral way to put it. It's like taking a pill that gives you exactly 2,000 perfectly balanced calories.
That's a great comparison.
Yeah, you survive, sure.
Yeah.
But you completely bypass the experience of smelling the food, tasting the spices, chewing, and digesting. The nourishment is there, but the human experience is entirely amputated.
Precisely.
So if AI is just the shadows on the wall or this temporary scaffolding, it really begs the question, where exactly does it fit? Because it clearly isn't useless, but you're saying it isn't the ultimate truth either. Your text maps out a very specific three-tiered framework based on Plato's theory of forms to help us classify this.
We do.
How do we break down our reality into these three levels?
Well, if you want to properly position AI in your life so it doesn't become your master, this three-tiered framework is absolutely essential.
Okay, let's hear it.
The first tier, the foundational layer, is what we call participation. In classical Greek, this is Methexis. You could think of this as the practical shore.
The practical shore.
Yeah.
So is this our muddy, messy, everyday physical reality?
Precisely. This tier is your daily lived experience. It is your concrete actions, your physical presence in a room, the historical situations you find yourself in.
The real world.
Yes. It is where truth is actually practiced and realized. It's the friction of looking a colleague in the eye during a negotiation, or the tactile reality of holding your child's hand.
Right.
It is the undigitizable physical world where you must constantly make contextual decisions.
Okay, that makes total sense. Tier 1 is reality, the ground we walk on. So how do we move from that physical reality to the second tier and what happens there.
So the second tier is the realm of general forms. We describe this as the dynamic medium. And this is exactly where artificial intelligence operates.
Really? Here?
Yes, it is the bridge.
Wait, let me make sure I'm getting this. You're saying AI does not operate in the real world of Tier 1, nor does it sit at the top of the intellectual hierarchy. It is purely just the middleman.
Yes, exactly. AI represents the general forms. When we talk about general forms, we are talking about concepts like mathematics, formal logic, syntax, structural categorization, and algorithmic sorting. AI is an incredibly powerful temporary engineering structure that we use to process the overwhelming differences and complexities of the physical world.
Because the world is too noisy otherwise?
Right. It calculates probabilities, it organizes massive data sets, it bridges the gap between the raw, chaotic data of Tier 1 and our conceptual understanding. But it is vital to remember in our framework, it is only a medium. It does not possess a worldview. It only possesses a map of mathematical relationships.
So what does this all mean? If AI is just the bridge, where is the bridge actually taking us? That brings us to your third and final tier.
Yes, the third tier is what Plato called the form of the good. We refer to it as the ultimate horizon.
The ultimate horizon.
This is the highest level of human cognition. It is the ultimate light that illuminates the entire structure. In our philosophical framework, this tier is your natural intelligence.
Now, when you say the form of the good, some people might assume you're talking about a religious deity or maybe some utopian objective morality floating in the ether.
Sure, that's a common reading.
How should we practically understand this concept?
It is a common misconception, but we rely heavily on the philosopher Gadamer's interpretation here.
Okay.
The form of the good is not a rigid mathematical formula, and it certainly isn't a giant supercomputer in the sky. Rather, it is the guiding light for practical, correct judgments in specific, lived situations.
Practical judgments.
Yes. It is your intuitive, holistic wisdom. AI can process the data, but only your natural intelligence, your form of the good, can tell you why that data matters.
Why it matters.
Exactly. It tells you how it should be applied ethically and what the ultimate purpose of an action is. Machines calculate, humans evaluate.
I love that. Machines calculate, humans evaluate. So to synthesize this for you listening right now, imagine a ladder.
Okay.
You are standing firmly on the ground, in the dirt, the practical shore. That's Tier 1, your lived reality. You use AI as a ladder, Tier 2, the general forms, to help you process the overwhelming noise and data of the world.
Perfect.
But your ultimate goal, your singular focus, is to climb that ladder toward ultimate wisdom, Tier 3, the form of the good, your natural intelligence.
Exactly. When you internalize this structure, it forces a massive shift in how you interact with technology.
How so?
You stop asking the ladder to tell you where the destination is. The ladder's only job is to bear your weight while you climb. The direction you climb is entirely up to you.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because conceptually, the ladder makes sense. But human nature totally gets in the way. It always is. We tend to fall in love with the ladder. We get obsessed with the rungs. So the million-dollar question is, how do we actively harness AI in our daily routines without getting stuck in the middle tier?
This challenge brings us to the core mission of our analysis. The goal is to actively transition from artificial intelligence to natural intelligence.
Yeah.
Interestingly, in our examination of the source text, we noticed that Plato's Greek concepts align strikingly well with a fundamental principle found in classical Eastern philosophy.
Oh, really?
Yes. It is the distinction between mere learning, which is the endless accumulation of facts, and true awakening, which is achieving deep clarity and insight.
The jump from learning to awakening. Going from just hoarding data to actually understanding the nature of the problem.
Exactly.
How do we force that transition when we're just sitting at our laptops?
It requires a deliberate, almost counterintuitive practice. We must use AI as a dynamic medium to solve complex problems. But the moment the calculation is done, we must practice the art of what we translated as discarding the many.
Discarding the many. Okay,
Yeah.
This challenge is like every instinct I have as a modern professional.
Without it might.
We are conditioned to be digital hoarders. We save every PDF, we bookmark hundreds of articles, we export and archive every single ChatGPT transcript. We are terrified of losing the data.
It's a modern epidemic.
But you are arguing that once this temporary structure, this AI tool, has served its purpose, we actually have to throw the scaffolding away.
We absolutely must let it go.
Mm.
If you cling to the tool and hoard the outputs, you are effectively turning your chair back around to stare at the shadows on the cave wall.
Wow.
You are obsessing over the scaffolding instead of living inside the building you just constructed. True awakening, true natural intelligence, occurs when we stop fixating on the fragmented, infinite data points that AI provides, and instead return to the core truth of our lived reality.
Let's ground this in a very practical scenario. Say I have a massive strategy meeting tomorrow.
Okay, let's walk through it.
I feed 50 pages of corporate reports into an AI and ask it for a summary and a list of strategic options. The AI gives me a brilliant, beautifully formatted document.
Right.
Tier 2 has done its job. How do I discard the many in this specific scenario?
You read the summary, you absorb the underlying patterns the AI helped expose, and then you put the document away.
Put it away completely.
Yes. You do not go into the meeting and simply read the AI's bullet points aloud. You discard the specific data points, the many, and you step into the room relying on your newly informed, holistic judgment.
Oh, I see.
You look your colleagues in the eye, you read the emotional temperature of the room, you consider the ethical implications of the strategy, and you make a human decision.
That is the form of the good in action.
Exactly. If you rely entirely on the printed document, you are just outsourcing your humanity to the machine.
It's the difference between staring at a GPS route on your phone for 3 hours versus looking out the windshield, seeing the landscape, and actually experiencing the road trip.
That is exactly it. When you actively choose to engage your natural intelligence, you align with what is truly good and practical for your specific situation.
It's so grounding.
Our text includes a deeply poetic insight to capture this. It notes that truth is not some abstract code hidden away in a server farm in the desert.
Yay!
Rather, as the text states, truth is at the tip of a flower.
Truth is at the tip of a flower. That is a gorgeous phrase, and it feels incredibly tactile.
It is meant to be.
It implies that truth isn't a calculation. It is immediate, physical, and sensory.
Yes. It speaks to the concept of practical wisdom, what the ancient Greeks called phronesis.
Phronesis?
AI can process 1 billion data points about the biological cellular structure of a flower. It can categorize its species, calculate its growth rate, and even write a poem about its color. But the machine can never actually experience the truth of the flower. It cannot smell it, it cannot feel the texture of the petals, and it cannot appreciate its fleeting beauty.
Only we can do that.
Exactly. Only your natural intelligence is capable of experiencing meaning. So when you use AI to handle the heavy lifting of calculation, you must intentionally step back, discard the digital noise, and re-engage with the physical, ethical reality right in front of you.
That brings it all home perfectly. It's a reminder that we are the artists and AI is just the paint.
Beautifully said.
So, to everyone listening, the next time you sit down at your desk and open up an AI tool, remember Plato's divided line. Let the AI process the shadows, let it summarize the emails, let it untangle the messy code, let it organize the data points. But the moment it finishes, turn around.
Turn around.
Face the sun of your own natural intelligence.
Yeah.
AI is the medium, you are the meaning maker.
As we conclude, this framework raises a rather provocative question, and it is the final thought we want to leave you with today.
Ooh, okay, let's hear it.
We have clearly established that AI is rapidly, aggressively conquering the second tier, the realm of the general forms.
Right.
It is mastering logic, syntax, probability, and calculation at a pace we can barely comprehend. If we extrapolate this forward, an AI eventually masters all of these general forms perfectly, providing us with every possible logical calculation effortlessly.
Yeah.
Will it actually force humanity into a philosophical corner?
A philosophical corner. Explain the mechanics of that. How does extreme convenience corner us?
Well, if the machine can eventually do all the learning for us, if it seamlessly processes the many and handles all cognitive drudgery, then the only space left for human beings to occupy is the third tier.
Oh, wow.
The only thing left for us to do is to cultivate the form of the good. If we no longer have to struggle with data processing, our only remaining human task is the pursuit of wisdom, ethics, and meaning.
That is heavy.
So, the thought we pose is this. Could it be that artificial intelligence, rather than being the technology that destroys human agency, is actually the ultimate catalyst that forces a worldwide human spiritual awakening?
Wow. That is a staggering paradigm shift. If the 4K projector in the cave gets so perfectly automated and so ubiquitous that it essentially runs itself, maybe we finally get bored of looking at the shadows.
Exactly.
Maybe having all the answers is exactly what finally forces us, once and for all, to walk out of the cave and look directly at the real sun. Thank you for listening. We hope this text has been helpful and inspiring to you. See you next time.